Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story about how a young cadet's arrogance got a well-deserved lesson in humility. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash the like if you enjoy the content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a juicy story. Brad and the Table. This story was told to me by my friend Lucy. At the time, she lived in an army town and worked for many summers at a restaurant popular with the officers and their families. At this particular restaurant, which is on the higher end, there's a table reserved for high-ranking officers who visit the base. People who work there refer to it as the table. On busier nights, when there isn't a higher-ranking officer in town, it's utilized to seat more patrons, but for the most part, it's left alone. It's a Friday, so it's busy. There's a general visiting the base, so the table isn't being used just in case he decided to grace the establishment with his presence. Lucy is manning her section when the owner, named John for the purposes of this story, waves her down. She heads over and he tells her, "I need you and Annie, another server, to help me man the table." "The general's coming?" she asked. "Nope, Brad is." Lucy rolled her eyes. Brad was a local bigwig's high school-age son, and he had it in his mind that he was a hotshot. He frequented the restaurant with his girl of the week and proceeded to make a nuisance of himself every time, but not enough to the point that he was asked to leave. Lucy asked John, "Are you sure? What if the general wants to eat dinner with us?" At this point, John leaned in with a wide smile and said, "Apparently, the general called and told us to give Brad the table and to give him and his guests anything he wanted." Lucy then smiled as she realized what was about to happen. Brad was about to get a serving of malicious compliance on the house. 20 minutes later, Brad, wearing a West Point blazer, arrives with several young people. John makes a big show of greeting them and escorting them to the table. The people look around impressed, and Brad proceeds to command Lucy, John, and Annie around like he owns the restaurant. The only good thing about this particular experience was that, due to him being underage, Brad and his buddies never tried to order any alcohol. Brad proceeded to be a nuisance, demanding more appetizers, sending food back because it wasn't cooked just right, ordering the most expensive entrees on the menu, yada yada yada. Lucy, Annie, and John continue with this, smiling as more and more food is added to the table. It's time for the check. Lucy told me that the entire group managed to rack up $843.29, not counting the mandatory gratuity because the party's above a certain size. Brad gets the bill, and he flips out. "What is this?" he barked, waving the check. "It's your check," John said. "The general said to let you order anything you wanted." Brad stands up to argue, and that's when the host rushes up, her face white. "John, the general's here," she whispered. Everyone turns to look, and there's the general with his entourage. John excuses himself before going over. He and the general start to talk for a few minutes, and Lucy notices Brad turning white and starting to get out of his seat. Annie looked at him and said, "You better not try and dine and dash." She said, "I really don't want to have to sick these nice officers on you." Brad sat down and fidgeted. John and the general came back to the table. Making eye contact with Brad, John said, "Brad, you said the good general here insisted you have the table and that you can order anything you want. Is this true?" He only nodded. "Well, the general here said that he never made no such phone call." "That's odd," Brad said before looking at the general. "I'm pretty sure it was you I talked to." Sir?" "I have the phone number. Let's call it," John said, pulling out his cell phone and dialing a number. That's when they hear Brad's brand new cell phone going off in his pocket. The general held his hand out, and Brad puts the phone in his hand. He checks the number and asks John, "Is your number 123-456-7890? "It is," John said. The general then proceeded to get a serious look on his face. "Brad, are you a cadet?" "I'm being considered for an appointment," Brad said. The general nodded. "I suggest you pay your bill, tip in full, and apologize to the staff for your behavior." He said to Brad, "I also suggest withdrawing your name as soon as possible to save yourself the embarrassment." Keeping his head down, Brad paid the bill, meekly apologized, and left with his sycophants. The general and his entourage patiently waited for the table to be cleared and set. They proceeded to have a nice meal, leaving a generous tip and apologizing for people like Brad. Lucy proceeded to have a wonderful Brad-free career. Well, that's a spectacular way to ruin your career before you even start one. Kind of like that idiot that flipped the bird to the guy he cut off to steal his parking space, only to have his job interview with him. And our second story. Debit cards. I work at Wood Forest National Bank. For those who don't know, it's a bank based out of Texas, located primarily on the East Coast inside of Walmart. This story happened about a month ago. One of our usual entitled Karen, EK, customers comes into the bank demanding we print her a new debit card because she lost her old one. We issue debit cards same day so long as they pay a debit card fee, $10 for a reprint or $15 for a new card, waived for certain accounts. A reprint was a simple task, so I print her card and send her on her way. She then walks back into the bank because the last two numbers were slightly rubbed off. This is due to how the machine prints the cards and is pretty common. EK, I want you to print this card again. Me, is it not working? EK, look at the last two numbers. Other banks don't give me cards with rubbed off numbers. Me, I'm sorry, ma'am, but sometimes that happens with the machine. It rubs part of the numbers off when activating the chip. EK, I don't care. It looks terrible. Do it again. Me, ma'am, I don't think this is a good idea. We really don't have control over how the machine... EK, raising her voice, I don't care what you have to do. Just print my card again so it looks nice. She takes a pair of scissors and cuts up the card into tiny pieces in front of me. EK, print the effing card now, or do I have to close my account and contact market manager's name? The market manager isn't someone you would know unless you have had a conversation with him before. It's obvious she's trying to name drop him to get me to shut up and comply. Cue malicious compliance. I turn over to my manager and he gives me a nod. I then put on a devious smile and say, absolutely, ma'am, but to ensure this won't happen again, we will need to change the numbers, so I'm going to need you to sign some things. EK, see, was that so hard? We then spend the next 10 minutes printing out new cards until we get one that doesn't have the numbers slightly rubbed off. Each time the card isn't to her liking, she cuts it up and says to do it again. I just smile and say, sorry about that, let's try again. Each time until about 8 cards later, she finally gets a card number that isn't rubbed off. EK, finally, this card looks good, thanks. She just leaves with a smug grin thinking she won and leaving us with her massive pile of cut-up debit cards. What we forgot to remind her of is having a completely new card generated outside of fraud or expiration costs $15 to be deducted from your account. This is made clear at account opening, and since she signed off on having all these new cards printed, there was nothing she could say. Normally, I try and help people avoid bank fees, but in this case, F this entitled woman. Couple days later, she comes storming into the bank, looking pissed. EK, WTF did you do to my account? Me, I'm sorry, ma'am, but what seems to be the problem? EK, there's a bunch of debit card fees on my account. WTF did you do? Me, oh, every time you had me print a new debit card the other day, a $15 fee was charged to your account. The first one, where you only had me reprint the card number, was only $10. EK, you need to effing reverse these fees right now before I call market manager name and get you fired. At this point, my manager steps in. Manager, hello, ma'am, what's the issue? EK, your dumb butt employee tricked me into paying over $100 worth of fees because he kept effing up my debit card. Manager, ma'am, could you please not yell? Also, I was there. You demanded we print you a new debit card because you didn't like the numbers being rubbed off. We have your signature on these forms stating that you wanted these cards to be printed. I will not be reversing these fees for you. EK, then I want to close my account. Manager, okay, but first you need to pay off your negative account balance as well as your line of credit. EK, just give me market manager's name. Number this instant. Me, sorry, ma'am, but we aren't at liberty to just give out his number like that. Here's the number to customer service if you'd like. This is true, as he's instructed us not to give his number out to any customer who asks. The only people who need his number already have it. She takes the number, screams, I'll have your jobs for this, flips us off, kicks over a chair, and storms out. We get a call from customer care later about the incident where we explain everything and scan over all the signed debit card applications. Also, she had us print 8 brand new cards in the one reprint. That cost her about $130 in fees because she demanded a new debit card. The best part is my manager likely would have just waived the original $10 fee had she just been nice and asked. And our last story. My neighbor won't allow me to use the backyard pool. I'm a 30-year-old male, and I have a house down here in Florida, and around evening time, after a long day of work, etc., I love taking a dive in my pool, in my backyard, and have a nice swim for a while. I just find it soothing, relaxing, and helps me sleep better, and I feel much better, and it's something I look forward to every day. A week or so, while I was walking my dog out, a lady came up to me and said, "Oh, hi, I'm Janice. I'm your new neighbor. So good to see you. I just wanted to introduce myself. I live right next door to you with my daughter, and we just moved in, etc." And then she shook my hand and walked off. All good. The owner of that house is named Gary. He's a great guy. He's in his 50s, and I've known him for ages. So he usually rents out that house, and so these are his new tenants. He used to live in that house, but for the past few years, he's been renting it out. So every day around 6 to 7 p.m., I go take a dive in my pool. I take my shirt off, just wearing my swimming trunks, and go right in my pool and start swimming. Every day I see a lady sitting on her balcony just watching me swim. I don't care, or so just mind my business swimming, or I might sit on the chair on the pool just relaxing, minding my own business. Yesterday while I was swimming at 7 p.m., I hear a loud banging, knocking noise on my door. I get up from my pool, dry myself, put a pair of clothes on, and go to the front door and say, "Hey Janice, how's it going?" She said, "What's going on is you're trying to lure my innocent daughter into your trap, and I know how this goes." I then told her, "Janice, I'm not luring anybody, and I'm minding my business." She then said, "I don't care about all that, but listen, put some clothes on and stop swimming at your pool. We have children over here." I then just say, "It's my pool, and it's my property, Janice. I'm not doing anything." And I just go inside and close the door. I'd be prepared for more of this if I were you, though. Janices don't tend to go back into the woodwork once they've crawled out of it. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.